All right, good morning. Well, I guess it's noontime morning, wherever you are in this country, but it is the 12th of October, and it looks like it here in Newport. The gray pall of fall is finally upon us, and now we're all scratching to find something to do. So thanks for the All-Star cast. This week we've got Greg Fisher, who hopefully everybody can see in our lineup there, to give us a little insight on the Melges 37 class action that he's been doing. I see 37 by Melges. I'll get that right one of these days. That's a mouthful, but it's all good. It was with the Melges, I was able to jump in on a couple of events that seemed to spark the end of summer here, and then all of a sudden we were on the dock, and after two events went, well, that's it, summer's over, and that was just like that. It ended. So since then, for me, a bit of pulling out the Dragonflight 95 out of storage and learning how to sail that thing upwind and downwind. So I think that's all I've got cooking for the fall until frostbite season starts. So I'm looking forward to a little something different. But don't we do a quick roundtable here, see who's in the house. Gary, you've been busy down there, and there's some action going on with some world sailing elections and things like that. So can you give us any insight of what's happening at the top of the sport there?
Well, just quickly, Dave, we had a double-handed race a week and a half ago that went very well. 37 entries here, and wind lasted all night long. Randy Smythe won the J105 double-handed mixed division, and we had two divisions of ORC. So anyway, it went well, and there was a lot of enthusiasm for that. Having said that, the world sailing voting is happening at the present time. There's awful lot of speculation going on about who's going to win and who's not. For me, I am totally committed to getting Corey Sertle elected as vice president, taking my place on the board. And I think her chances of getting elected are very encouraging. There's 15 people running for those 7 places on the board, so we'll see what happens. And then on the president's race, we in the U.S. are strongly supporting Scott Perry from Uruguay to be the president. The voting closes this coming weekend, and if one presidential candidate gets 50% of the vote, that person's elected. There are 4 candidates at the present time. But if not, the bottom 2 will drop out, and then there'll be a runoff of the top 2. And all the results will be announced on Sunday morning, November 1st, which is a great warm up for another election that's happening 2 days later.
All right. So those who like to follow the politics of sailing, where do they follow along in these results, or this what's happening there?
So sailing.org, World Sailing's website, sailing.org, will have the updated information, and I'm sure there'll be a lot of noise coming about, and it only seems to be that way. The one thing I've learned is that the electorate, the people that vote, are the MNAs, member national authorities. There's 144 across the world, the United States being exactly one of the 144. And if you look at historic voting, they tend to like geographic representation. And under the rules, you have to have at least 2 of the other gender. There's 5 women running this time. We've never had that many. So at least 2 of them will be elected. So we'll see if the geographic spread continues. Interestingly, there's 2 candidates from the Caribbean, and we'll see how that goes too. But having 2 from the same place is not usually helpful.
All right. So we'll get the politics in and out of there quickly and get to more about stuff. All right. So Jonathan, what have you been doing out there in the Pacific Northwest?
Yeah, it's definitely turned to fall/winter out here. Windy and rainy and cold. So our summer days are over. I was actually in Houston this last weekend for the J-Fest regatta. And that was really fun. I was sailing a J70 with Bruno Pasquinelli, and a couple days of nice sailing following the hurricane, which just missed Houston. We were down there on Friday. That was supposed to be our practice day and couldn't sail because it was blowing 50 knots out in the Gulf. We go out the next day and it's 2 knots. So
J70, yeah. So J70 sailing seems to be kind of where it's at. And I saw a picture recently with Mr. Ed Baird finally freed from his home confinement and did a little regatta there on St. Pete Yacht Club's.
Yeah, I think the J70 class is starting to come back, and there's some regattas scheduled in Tampa at Davis Island, which are very well subscribed at the moment. So kind of looks like Florida remains open, that those winter regattas will happen.
All right, Ed. You're on a St. Pete Yacht Club charter boat. You've got your son, Nick, right? You guys teamed up. Was that spontaneous, or what's the story there?
Well, there's the picture behind me. That was pretty spontaneous. Nick wanted to sail the club championships, which is a one-day event every fall. And it looked like it was going to be a nice breeze, and he wanted to crank it up. So I said, all right, I'll come sail with you. And he was trying to keep things all in-house so that we didn't expose ourselves or others to us, and vice versa. And so we just sailed with 3, with he and his longtime girlfriend, Isabel. And I think I was trying to go back through my notes and my brain here, and I don't think he's actually steered a keelboat before in an event. So that was kind of fun to get him out there and get involved in that. It was bumpy, and we probably started the day out with 15, 16 knots of wind and slowly dropped it down to about 8 or 9 by the end of the day. And interestingly, I hadn't sailed on any kind of a boat since last March when we were down in Cape Town, and Isabel, who was an All-American crew at Yale when she was going to school there, she graduated 3 years ago, and she hasn't been on any kind of a sailboat since then. And it was really an interesting story because it's so typical of our junior youth programs that the kids do all this incredible sailing, and then they graduate, get a job, and the sailing often can stop. And she was, as I see a lot, she was one of these people who got on the boat and she goes, oh gosh, I've missed this so much. How do I do more of this? And that was, it was great to just get out there with her and with Nick driving the boat for the first time. And I got abused a lot for, not by my team, but by people from the outside about my technique on the bow. But, I was out there.
And is there an age where you don't go up on the bow anymore when you're yacht racing?
Yes, it's called the sport boat age. Now you just sit in the cockpit and do the bow. It's really nice.
Okay.
Yeah, the key there, if I remember, correct me right, Jonathan, is the key role there is to prevent the shrimping. Was it a clean weekend?
Jonathan or me?
You, yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, one of the nice things about the club fleet is that the sails are a little bit smaller. So, there's less chance of the kite dragging in the water and things like that. And on our first drop in the first race, we actually got a nice sized knot in the halyard on the way down. So, it didn't come down all the way, but we never lost it in the water. So, yeah, it was good that way.
The key test for a bowman, though, Ed, as you know, is putting up the spinnaker the right way. It didn't go up sideways ever, did it?
Well, that's the good thing about having the young guys with me there. I could just say, hey, you guys rig this. It was, really honestly, it was my third time sailing on a J70. I've only ever sailed the club boats here at St. Pete, and I've only ever crewed on them for my kids. And they're really fun. I enjoyed it, and maybe there's some opportunity to do a little bit more of that with the full fleets down here. I think, as Jonathan said, I think the Tampa stuff this winter looks like it's going to have around 60 or 70 boats involved. So it's a pretty good fleet.
Yeah, they're capping it at 55 boats, I think, just because they don't have any more space than that at the club at Davis Island there. But it's oversubscribed at the moment.
Yeah.
So I think that's going to be an excellent opportunity to do some good sailing. And there's 4 regattas, one each month from December through March. So it's a nice little circuit down the road from you, Ed.
That's
Might be time for you to get a boat.
It's 30
Seriously.
minutes away. We often go over in the powerboat and just have a look and what's going on, and my kids sail on a couple of different boats over there. So yeah, it's good fun.
So real quick,
Getting a boat though, Ed. Seriously, I'm not going to let up on this. Your
So
future.
you're saying you want to partner with me on a boat? Is that what I hear?
Well, I'll discuss it with you.
All right, we'll get Greg to drive down from Charleston. We can all go sailing together.
Okay.
clear up your Cat 1 status and you'll be good to go. One of you guys.
No category issues in the J70 class.
Yeah, great. Well, cool. Well, real learning thing, Ed. You said Nick's first time in a keelboat. Well, not first time in a keelboat, but racing a keelboat, I suppose. But did you find some tendencies to to try to break some habits to treat it less like a college dinghy and more like a keelboat?
Well, yeah. I mean, in the busy start process, there were a couple times where I was surprised at things that he was trying to do, at a pretty late time. And that's just a matter of understanding the momentum of the boat and, how long it takes to get going again. And so there was a little bit of that. There was, some technique driving through the waves, which, unless you sail a keelboat, you don't get used to that. With the dinghies, it's a whole different thing when your body weight is a major portion of the total of the boat and the bodies together. But when you sail a keelboat, of course, the boat is now the substantial thing. So you have to understand how to allow it to get through the waves well. And then momentum downwind, surfing on the waves, all those things are just a little different than they are in a dinghy. And he picked them up really quick because, that's the great thing about being a dinghy sailor is that you feel the boat well. But for sure, there, having never done it before, he came out in the waves and, just needed a little time to get good at it.
Outstanding.
Well,
Well,
ever
it's
go
awesome.
wing and wing?
What's that, Jonathan?
Did you ever go wing and wing?
No, it was no. We had pretty good breeze most of the time, and to where we were, heading up and surfing on waves and then shooting down low again. And
Nice.
so yeah, and no, it wasn't that smooth stuff where you wanted to do that.
Right on.
Well, it's just great to see you out there playing, Ed. We can see the smile on your face is there, and that's proof that it's good to get you out of the house. And so congratulations on that.
Yeah, and Lisa was happy to get me out of the house too. So that's it's been too many months of not going sailing. Good fun.
Outstanding. All right, how about you, Pedro? What have you been up to out on the West Coast? Yeah, well, we gotta get you on.
We're not suffering from the hurricanes nor that cold fall winter weather that Jonathan's enjoying. It's going to be 85 here at the beach today. Tomorrow, 90 degrees. Just crazy weather. Crazy. But all good out here. We just wrapped up the final class of an epic 4-month process with my good friend Chris Bedford. There you see us enjoying Chris in his new home now, living on the West Coast. That's the advanced class 8 lecture. We recorded 1 lecture a week for 4 months, and we got 16 lectures in, and all the classes, all the quizzes and course materials that Chris put together. So Marine Weather University's 2020 curriculum is complete, and I don't have anything to do on Tuesday nights anymore for a while. So that was a fun process. A couple things I learned a bunch of things, even though I majored in meteorology. Chris did such a good job. Well, probably one of the coolest ones was just getting reacquainted with looking at the sky and identifying clouds. And I think all of us sailors understand that it's really important to look at the sky, and there are clues to what the wind's going to do for us racing sailors by paying attention to it, whether they're convergence clouds or especially those lower cumulus clouds, or when it starts raining. There's some good tips there. And it was great to see Chris putting the import on opening your eyes and using your brain and not necessarily using your weather app. He's an old school meteorologist, And one of the things that when he talks about his process of doing a weather forecast is he talks about the forecast funnel. This was from, I think, class 3. And when he does, he writes weather forecasts. Probably everybody on this Zoom call has received a sailwx.com weather forecast for a race at some point or other. And his report starts with the big picture. And so he when he wakes up in the morning, he looks at the big picture, the weather systems, the synoptic scale, the weather maps, the upper air chart, before he even goes back down in to even look at the lower level stuff. And finally getting the internet and weather files and the weather models is sort of the last place he goes. And his teaching to all the Marine Weather University students is to, again, use the same process he does. And he gave some great drills in doing that. So it was a great reintroduction into weather forecasting. And now with the 2020 curriculum complete and anybody can take the course 24/7, I'm going to go back to what I started the project to do when lockdown started, which was teaching my classes on racing navigation and the use of expedition software. And so at the end of this month, we get I have a free webinar that go to marineweatheru.com and you can sign up if you're one of the first 100 to a free webinar on weather routing and grid files, which will kick off that segment of the school. So it's been a lot of fun, and I'm so proud of Chris. He's going away soon. He's trying to get a visa to get down to New Zealand to go help our team down there.
You know, Pete, you're right at what a great teacher he is. 20 years ago when we did the America's Cup last time in New Zealand, he was our weather forecaster for the Young America team. And he started every morning briefing to tell us about the weather. He started with a word of the day. And, I still remember a lot of those words of the day that I'd never heard of before that were, terms of the weathermen. But he was a really good, he would capture your interest and then let you know what was going to happen. And you remembered what he taught you. It was good.
It's great.
Yep.
So there's a good point there. And much like we tell our kids to stop looking at their phones, I guess when we're out in the race course, we should stop looking at the marine weather apps and the buoys around us and look at the sky. Is that true?
Yeah, I mean, there's a place for the weather apps, and they are very convenient. But to simply rely on the weather app du jour, which is in most cases just a repackaging of some of our tax dollars, in the case of the American models, and a bunch of the different weather apps use the same models. But until you have a full understanding of the limitations of the apps, and then really you're going to battle with one course of plan and no knowledge at all if you just rely on the app. The app says the wind's going to, in the hour between 1300 and 1400, for example, if it says, okay, the wind's going to trend right 10 degrees and build 2 knots. Well, how many of us sailors have ever sailed in a race where over the course of the hour it went perfectly 10 degrees, 0.6 degrees every minute or whatever, and then and increased linearly? There's all the ups and downs and stuff, and that's where Chris in the courses really made it clear that you can't just, even with a really with a perfect weather model that's correct at what happens at 1300 and 1400, it's still going to be variable in between. And if you don't use your brain and your eyes, and then you are relying, in the course of 1V, a 10-minute leg, the wind could go left, but my app said go right, so the app was wrong. And that's where, and what happens when the wind starts going down and going left forever? If you don't have greater knowledge or haven't done a little bit of homework or paid somebody like Chris to do it for you, you're going to, you throw your app out because it's wrong. You don't have any other explanation except BS. And it's a lot better to be sailing with people that, you know, are looking at the sky. I sailed this summer with Billy Hardesty, and he had done a lot. He had Ed Adams from your neck of the woods, Dave, as his coach for years. And he had so many Ed Adams-isms about, oh, the wind's coming off the shore and it's in the left quadrant, therefore we need to do this. It's great to have an arsenal of weather tools beyond your app. And that's where, I agree with you, Ed, you know, that our kids will, you know, have to learn. They have to go back to school. In fact, I'm talking to the ICSA right now about trying to get Marine Weather University to all the college sailors.
Outstanding. All right. Well, it's a great thing to do, I guess, as we all dive into the winter or before the Florida circuit start, to go get schooled up and learn how to do it ourselves and figure out what's the hashtag fake weather. That'll be the new one, right?
You had a class, didn't you, Pedro, on using the apps, though? One of yours kind of took you through all that?
Yeah, I've done a bunch of courses because, you know, the weather models are great. There's so much information out there, and that ultimately is how one of the very important tools that pro meteorologists like Chris Bedford use to generate forecasts. So to ignore them is crazy. And I did a survey. It was kind of interesting. I'm on the board of the American Sailing Association. I surveyed, I think, like 500 professional sailing instructors. I surveyed 2,000 professional sailing instructors and asked them what their favorite app was. Because just like you can survey all your sailing friends and everybody has a different one, or maybe it was interesting to see what they came up with. And I had it. In fact, I'll reprise that at some point. But there are ways that you can go in and effectively and efficiently get the most out of those apps, rather than just having a favorite one that has limitations. So it all takes time. It's too much time on the computer, Greg.
So one last final question on that one. Do you remember what was the predominant preferred weather app?
Yeah, so NOAA won some form of repackaged NOAA weather app, which was good because that's where you get the forecast discussion, which is the sort of the top of that forecast funnel, if you will, if you want to read some pros, look at the highs and lows and the weather situ before you dive in. Windy was a big one, and I've become a huge fan of Windy. It's, if you lived in Europe, that would be your money too, and the graphics are incredible. There's a lot of money that's gone into that. And then also in the US, Sailflow, which goes by a bunch of different names: iKitesurf, iWindsurf, Weatherflow. Has some great models in it, and Predict Wind were sort of the top ones.
Cool.
All
right.
Dave, you know, just as a comment there, as an end user who's not a meteorologist, I find that different apps are strong in different areas of the world. And so I think, you know, you find one that works well for your area or the place where you're sailing at the moment. And that can be good value, because I've had some that I just love for certain areas, and then they don't work at all in another place. I mean, or they don't work effectively. So I think that that's important to, as you're saying, not just take one of them as gospel everywhere.
Yeah, good point. In my favorites folder on my computer are location, Mediterranean weather sites, you know, websites, URLs, and Florida URLs. They always change though, you know. By the time I go back to a site, I have to go back, there are all these dead links. You have to go re-hunt for them again.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, you can throw it all away and look to the sky. I guess that's the point of it all, right?
Hey, you know, that's what they did in the olden days, and they found America and found the South Pacific and found Europe from America and back and forth.
Well, cool. Well, thanks for that, Peter. So the final word on that one. So people go to marineweatheruniversity.com is that you pay and you go and you do the classes at your own pace, and then you get a certificate in the mail type thing that says you're good to go.
Yeah, good to go. There's with two basic courses are the fundamentals course, which is 8 classes, and the advanced course, which is 16 classes on all designed by Chris. And you can take individual classes and sort of test drive the process because it's not cheap, but the courses is where the real values are in the whole sequence of education that Chris has created. marineweatheru.com.
Perfect. All right. And so on the learning side of things, so I guess at least second on my drop down menu here is Greg Fisher, who's the our special guest today as the official coach of the IC37 class by Melges. And Greg is, as I know Sailing World Readers has been a long time contributor, a champion of, I don't know how many classes, endless back in the day, right, Greg? And then elevated the College of Charleston sailing program to be top level, and is now doing his coaching thing. So Greg, thanks for coming in. And so let me just start by what'd you learn up here in Newport by watching IC37s go around the tracks for weeks on end?
Well, thanks for having me, Dave, and thanks you guys for letting me join in with you. But I relearned how cool Newport is as a place to hang out. That's for sure. Even under all the COVID and all that, it was great. You know, just being in that town and all the energy. It was fun. But I had a great time with this IC37 class, and I was honored to be able to be their class coach, and was hired back in March. And of course, that's when everything shut down. So we really weren't able to do any sailing. And to be honest with you, I had not even seen the boats until 2 weeks ago. I've watched a lot of videos and looked at a lot of pictures and talked to a lot of people. And we ended up doing 5 webinars for the class, which was fun, and got some of the better, you know, the more experienced sailors to help with that. And we did sail trim and tuning things with, you know, the North guys that are building the sails for the boats. And it was really good. It was neat. And I think that's kind of what makes this class so special is the sharing that goes on. And you guys know how this class, the philosophy is that, you know, it's intended to be, you know, provide high level competition, one design competition, and super one design focused boats. The sails are the same. Even the deck layouts are the same. They're even tuned the same and locked down. So the only adjustments you have besides the basic sail trim things are that you can adjust the rig at the button, jack the rig up and down, and that's it. And people play with that all the time. But it really is one design. They're very specific about the number of pros on the boat, which is 1. And it's just a great one design opportunity for people to get in boats, either buy them themselves or charter them and not spend a pile of dough. And it's a really strong concept. And so in keeping with that, they wanted to bring a coach on that would hopefully help service the entire bunch. You know, we almost likened it to a college coach where, you know, you're trying to help build a team camaraderie and help especially the newer sailors. You know, there were a number of teams. I think out of the 14 boats at the Nationals, I think 6 or 7 of them were sailing them for the first time, you know, and that was cool, you know, and they wanted to make sure that group was getting as much knowledge as they could. And they wanted to see the better sailors, you know, the more experienced sailors share their knowledge. So my job was to run around the race course in between races and talk to the different boats and say, hey, you know what I saw was this, or, you know, maybe at the top mark he could have approached like that. And because I was in a position to kind of get up close and personal and take videos and actually share those with people on our practice days or in between races, we could really help people step up their game quickly. And I could step up my game quickly, learning, because you could see which boats were speedy and which boats were struggling. So it was pretty cool. And then we would do and what helped me get up to speed quickly is the first few days of New York Race Week. Tim Healy rode with me. So obviously I learned a ton in short order. And then we do debriefs at night. And, you know, debriefs are obviously here we are, the new normal. But we did it a little bit different, which worked out pretty cool. We were a little nervous in the beginning, but we opened it up so anybody could ask a question at any time. And it was cool because like Drew Friedis and Bill Rue, who ended up winning the Nationals and Pacific Yankee, were on every call. And if somebody had a question or we showed a video or a picture of them, say on, if they were doing something great, they would talk about why it was great. If they had a rough start and we happened to catch that on video, they would share why they didn't do it quite right. You know, so it's cool. And people would ask them questions. So it was really like a college team almost, but it really built the camaraderie. And I think the group had a ton of fun.
Yeah, it's great every night to, it's funny to see the teams come and go, but yeah, the consistent teams were there learning and sharing, which I thought was pretty impressive given that, it would have been pretty easy to check out and go straight to the beers.
Yeah. Yeah.
I want to chime in here. I think this is really a fruitful way forward for our sport. You go out there at some of these regattas and there's like 10 coaches buzzing around in their power boats, being paid by individual teams. And it creates this has and has nots thing where the lower level teams are not getting coached. The higher level teams have a lot of individual attention. And it just seems to me there's a lot of wasted resources and a lot of splitting of the fleet. And this is a really elegant way around that, where you're reducing the footprint of the regatta, and yet you're still allowing everyone to learn, which is, what people really like about sailing is that every time you come away from a regatta and you feel like you've learned a lot, even if you don't do well, you have a positive experience. So I think this is a concept that could be tried in a lot of different environments.
Yeah. Well, you're right, Jonathan. It was cool because, if you had a social environment, if we had the parties, if you think about it, it would have been that much easier for everybody to be able to hang out together because they've talked to one another, they've shared and asked questions, and it wasn't just a lecture, and it wasn't just the more experienced teams, sailing away from the rest of the group and they're feeling lost. There really was that sharing of information. It was really cool. And, speaking of the pro thing, it was neat. Tony Ray got on one of the boats during the second practice day before the Nationals. And it was neat because he worked with the guy and helped him out, just Peter McLennan, and it was really valuable to Peter. But then Tony got on the call that night. And I asked him a question, about time and distance at the start. And he talked for 15 minutes. And I think that really resonated with people too, that here's a pro, and obviously a well-respected pro sharing his knowledge too. And that's what we're hoping we continue on with as more pros get on the boats, is that they'll share and continue with this camaraderie that's really been a lot of fun.
Do you have a couple examples teed up from your time on the water?
Yeah, I think I do. Nothing too fancy, but so like I say, my job was to cruise around and watch what boats were doing that were speedy. So this is Blazer. Blazer won race week the week before. Obviously, it's light here. And it was kind of interesting to learn some of the things with the boats in comparison to some other big boats. Can you guys see that okay?
We can see your menu.
Oh, so the video, is it coming up?
That's
No,
correct.
Oh, click. You got to click one more button, click, and you're there, Greg.
Where's that now? On
Oh, yeah. You go cancel that share and come back in, and you're sharing a full screen rather than a actual file.
okay. Screen sharing. Sorry. We're
And so end your current one.
okay. Yeah. And then share screen, and then go here, and then share. So you see the file now, and if
Yeah.
does that bring it up now?
No.
Okay, I know what I gotta do. This old dog, new trick stuff, you guys. Well, here we are. Sorry.
It's only been a week or so, right?
Give me a half hour. I'll get this going.
No wonder those IC37 coaching sessions took so long.
Yeah, well, so I was fortunate, oh shoot, hold on here, guys. I was fortunate to be able to have Dave help me with some technology. I wonder why, so I'm trying to,
Sometimes you got to have the files. You got to double click them anyway, and have them open and ready under a different app. So if it's a QuickTime Player or whatever launches your video player.
okay. Bear with me. I think I got it this time, I hope. There, did that do it?
There we go. Now we're cooking.
How about that? Okay. So anyway, this is a picture of Chris Culver, Pete Levesque's his tactician. They ended up winning race week. It's just light air. And you know, what we learned that was interesting is you watch these guys moving around to keep the balance right. And obviously these boats are big, wide, flat boats. So wetted surface is huge. The jibs ended up being really full and powerful. A lot of twists in the main. The booms were way to weather. But you know, it was interesting. What I ended up looking at a lot was the wake leaving the transom. And if the wake was really flat and there were gurgles even from this far back, obviously it told the boat was too flat. And if the wake got pointy, this is really technical, but we saw that that was a big difference. So when we would go through this, we'd have a shot of, for example, Blazer that was looking great like this. And then we'd have somebody else, one of the newer teams that was struggling, and say, hey, here's what we see. And they would ask Blazer, you know, who moves first? How do you know that the boom should be, you know, 2 widths to weather? And the IC37 has vertical leads and obviously lateral leads that are on a track that you can adjust with a pin. So they're moving the leads up and down quite a bit. And what we realized that there's very little movement laterally, but the twist was huge. And it was kind of cool to see that. Then we learned that, can you guys see that okay?
No, see, I think you got to end that screen share and
To do it again? Okay,
yeah.
man. So there, can you see that?
Yeah.
Okay, this is Pacific Yankee that won the Nationals. And what we found that was interesting, you know, the IC37 has very little adjustment except the runner, the Cunningham, and the main sheet. And that is adjusted all the time, like any boat. But this overbend wrinkle program here is really what we were keying on. And when you would see a boat that the main was washed out and these overbend wrinkles were all the way back to the clue, like in many boats, we knew the mast was overbent. They probably didn't have enough shim under the butt, or they just simply overbaked the runner. But it was cool. So like I said, Drew Freedes would share, like he would have his team talk about how they're playing the runner, how they're working it, what they do in a puff, you know, to keep the boat balanced, and the magic heel of 19 to 22 degrees. And then can I do one more? This is, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Yeah, absolutely. While you're teeing that one up, there's a lot of during the racing, a lot of movement of the bricks. But did you find that there was much activity with the standing rigging in the mornings as well?
Well, so you can't change the standing rigging. I mean, they're locked down, and that's part of the measurement process before they even start the racing. And there were a couple times, I understand, where they'd have the measurer go double check and make sure the rigs were still equal or hadn't, you know, stretched on a newer boat. So now, can you guys see that? Nope,
Not
of
yet.
course not yet. Geez. Okay, bear with me. The old dog here. I'll need another. Hold on. I think, did this do it?
No, we're looking at your Zoom window.
Okay. Sorry. All right. Give me another half hour here, guys. I'll get this.
Greg, you got a nice wall of pictures there behind you.
Yeah. Everybody has to have that surprise the mailman hasn't come and the dogs haven't started barking. There we go. Did I get it this time?
You
Yeah.
did.
Oh man, how about that? That didn't even take a half hour. So this is kind of so we did boat handling too. This is Pacific Yankee going into a jibe, and I think these especially resonated with the group because this was cool. Not only the drivers, the tacticians, the trimmers, but everybody on the boat would get involved with this. And this is Drew and Bill and their spectacular team going into a jibe. And we would point out that obviously in this situation, they're doing the late main jibe. 3 guys are tractoring the chute around like in so many asymmetrics like this. But the thing that was especially cool, if you look at Drew steering, many drivers get right up to the weather side, sit down and steer the boat through the jibe. He is clearly watching the chute, only jibing once the spinnaker is all the way around and filled on the new side. And then they'd squish, you can see the crew getting up, squishing the boat flat. The jib is eased so the spinnaker can fill. It's pretty cool. But anyway, you know, it was neat to have this kind of footage because we go back and forth and back and forth. And I promise you, I did a better job sharing it than I did this time.
Could you just play it in real time? Just let it roll
Sure.
while I'm talking.
Yeah. So it's interesting too, we saw with Pacific Yankee, and Drew talked about this, is although they sail heeled, they have to sail heeled upwind, and in light air, it's a real big deal to make sure you get at least 15 degrees of heel. So everybody's hiking on the leeward side. Downwind, it's really unusual that the boat is sailing even as heeled as much as it is here. Usually they get quite a bit flatter.
Nice smooth technique. Did you find through these debriefs, was there one team that was, active on the calls at night but that you just saw the progress through this kind of 2 weeks of sailing?
Yeah, there was some, Mike Goldfarb and his team, it was really cool how they were on every Zoom call. They had their whole gang together, watching together. So, they obviously had their fun. Everybody had cracked their beers and they were relaxing, but they would ask a million questions and give a million, tidbits of insight too, because they did well at race week and I think they were 4th in the nationals and sailed especially well. First time sailing the boat. And obviously Mike is a great Etchells, great J70, Melges 24 sailor, but he was very methodical in how, in fact, we're going to do something with him on a IC37 webinar about how he approached it and kind of chose, just like you would in anything, the major big points that were important to master and the details would come later. So it's pretty cool.
Did anybody do outside jibes at all, or is it all inside jibes?
It was inside, Gary, until, or I'm sorry, it was the boom late jibe unless it was light. If it was light, then they would do the normal inside jibe, do it pretty quick. And, we would key on how important it was to get the heel in the boat, the leeward heel when you came out, so you could then squish it flat. And where we would see a lot of differences is where people would ease the sheet out too far, so the clue would get way past the headstand and then they were late getting it back in. But it was cool to see the group share and talk about that. Cool.
Thank you, Greg. There was the group may know this answer because I don't know, maybe I'm to maybe stop sharing there real quick, Greg. And so the turn down, obviously, with the spinnaker takedown system is critical to getting the thing into the hatch and onward from there. So this word schwable, anybody know where the hell that came from? I know they make bike tires, and that's all I know.
It's been around for a long time. I can remember it, 25, 30 years ago. It was something that John Coleus used to say. And, we got to do a little schwable, and all that just meant was, kill the speed a little bit, flatten the boat, or stand the boat up, or, I think it even meant different things in different scenarios. I remember that a lot when we used to 2-boat test on the cup boats, and the guys would say, well, we're a little too advanced on the other boat. We need to do one little schwable here. But I don't know what the origins of that word are.
I know Blackhauler used that a lot in the late 70s and early 80s. That was a Blackhaulerism.
Wow. So it goes back further than I imagined. So maybe as a collective effort, we can find out who coined it, who came up with it, what the hell it meant back in the day. And pretty amazing. It still stands today.
It looks like Jonathan's already studying the internet to figure it out. So we'll put him in charge.
It sure is a cool term.
I wouldn't be a bit surprised if Lowell North had that in his inventory.
It sounds like something to call it
From Peter Barrett. I just have this feeling that Peter Barrett was the verbalizer between him and North, and that would extend itself to Blackhauler and Deaver and others.
All right. Well, that's good. Well, hopefully on our next call, we can get to the bottom of that one and find out where that came from. So,
Okay.
all right. We promise to keep it short. If anybody else want to chip in before we wrap this up.
Thanks,
I
Dave.
think that's a great idea, Dave, for a new column in Sailing World. Swabble.
Well,
The schwable. Yeah, it's all turned out. All right. That's all yours, Pedro. Then.
All right.
How do you spell it? How do you spell it?
Well, I know, like I said, I know there's a tire company that I buy my bike tires that's spelled SCHWALBE, based out in Ferndale, Washington. So maybe it's the same way. I don't know. We'll have to go back and find out.
I bet it's open for interpretation.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Stay healthy this week, and hopefully we'll connect again next Monday with some more fun times. Thank you, Greg, for sharing some of that. And
Thanks for having me.
we can find out, I guess you're posting some of the stuff at the IC37 class Facebook page, all that kind of stuff. It's all there, and people can go hunt and find some of the stuff you shot.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, we're going to post it on their website and send it to the individual owners and charterers too.
Cool. All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a great week.
All right.
Thanks,
Thank
Dave.
you.
Thanks,
see you next
everybody. Take care.
All right. Cheers.
Cheers.